right, hello Twitch, hello YouTube. We are here. It's Jimmy, and we are ready to work. Are you ready to work? I hope so. Howdy, Jade. I know I saw a chat there from Jade, but let me make sure everything's refreshed here so I can see it. Very cool to have folks stopping by. The early gang, rise up, early gang. Good to see you. Good to see you. We're gonna be doing like my message in chat says. We're gonna be doing live auditions. That's the name of the game here. But we're gonna be doing starting with voices.com, then Voice123, heading over to ACX, and we are going to also be working on a real, actual audiobook project that we've got. I've been saying that we've gotten approval from the author. And so we've got the green light. We're gonna go ahead and do some actual real audiobook work later today. But I tell you what we have got is we've got some jobs that have been rolling in, and I want to jump right into them before we get to where we're too far down in the queue to have a realistic shot of getting heard. So let's take a look. Ooh, already number 43 in the queue, and this just came in. Man, you got to be fast on voices.com. That's all right. We're gonna jump in here. This is a Schwab read. Let's take a look here. Schwab Asset Management. All right. We're not going to do any more pre-research. We're not going to pre-read the copy. We're going to jump in. Let's take a look here. Schwab Asset Management. Got some noise there. Schwab Asset Management is one of the largest and most experienced asset managers with over 30 years in the business. We offer a deliberate lineup of straightforward core investment products, as well as sophisticated customizable solutions. We strive to be a trusted ally for you and your clients, and a steadfast advocate for investors. We are passionate. We are passionate. You know, it looks like maybe we've had some stuff freeze. We've been having some internet issues today, so we're going to double check to make sure that we have not fully disconnected from everything. That would be a bummer. So apologies while I double check things on the stream here. No, it looks like we are still live on Twitch. Looks like maybe we lost YouTube, so we're going to double check here to make sure the YouTube is still good to go. No, we're still good. That's just how it is sometimes. We get our signals crossed here. So it looks like we're still good to go. I would say send me a chat and let me know if things freeze, but obviously if things are down, then chat is one of the things that I won't be getting. So we should be good to go here. Okay, very good. Let's go back. And we're back in. Where were we? Passionate. Steadfast advocate for investors. Steadfast advocate for investors. There we go. Steadfast advocate for investors. We are passionate about supporting advisors, and we have developed a wide range of resources to help you create better outcomes for your clients and reinforce your status as their trusted advisor. In this video, we'll be highlighting a collection of resources designed to help you take advantage of insights and thought leadership from experts across Schwab. Kind of a funny juxtaposition of consonants there, across Schwab. But I think we got it right. Let's take a quick tour to see what resources might meet your needs, as well as how to access them. So we have been awake since 4 a.m. Eastern Time. No real reason for it. It's not like I was waking up and feeding the chickens or anything like that. We don't have chickens, much to my lady's dismay. She would love to have chickens. No good reason. Sometimes, sometimes the body just wants to be awake when it wants to be awake. It's better than that. Better that than the horrible bum schedule that I can occasionally find myself on. So we've been awake for a long time, but that means we're nearing the end of our useful lifetime here. But we'll be all right. We'll be warmed up here shortly. Let's take a look here. 30 years in the business. We offer a deliberate is the word there. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we took a couple tries at that. Here we go. We're going to preserve this breath and see what it sounds like. It might not sound right. 30 years in the business. We offer a deliberate lineup of straightforward core investment products, as well as sophisticated I think maybe here's where we cut. Investment products, as well as sophisticated. Okay, obviously, right there. Core investment products, as well as sophisticated customizable solutions. We strive to be a trusted ally for you and your clients, and a steadfast advocate. And maybe where did I get this? Did I get this here? Trusted ally for you and your clients, and a steadfast advocate for investors. We are passionate about supporting advisors, and we have developed passionate about supporting advisors, and we have developed a wide range of resources to help you create better outcomes for your clients and reinforce your status as their trusted advisor. In this video, we'll be highlighting a collection of resource insights, and in this video, we go all the way back there. Okay. Your status as their trusted advisor. In this video, we'll be highlighting a collection of resources designed to help you take advantage of insights and thought leadership from experts across Schwab. And I yapped. From experts across Schwab. Let's take a quick tour to see what Okay, that's it. Simple edit, straightforward. It's really helpful. Hold on, we'll chat more in a second here. I don't know what that means. Charles Schwab, something management maybe. Reply. So it's really helpful the way that I've got it set up with the two different windows on the screen. Yeah, for the stream, it's useful because you as the viewer can see both my edit window and obviously the copy that I'm working off of. But it's also it's useful if you've got the screen real estate. It's helpful because as you're editing, you can glance over and see, like, have I chopped out too much? That's the main thing. Like if you're doing quick cuts like that, it's really easy to chop a sentence up in such a way that you've chopped out like an entire line. So as you're playing through it, especially when you're newer to this, make sure you're not chopping the good bits, the important bits, out of what you're doing. Interesting. So I'm only just now, Jade, thank you for the chat messages. I'm only just now seeing them. I'm gonna refresh my my chat window over here that I've got on this little tablet here because it is not showing up. But I did I was curious about why I wasn't seeing the old chat there. So we're gonna make sure that we get this going, and so that we can. But to answer your questions here, which DAW do I use or recommend? So DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, that's just the program in which you do all of your audio work. And for me, I am in, excuse me, I am in Pro Tools. This is absolutely overkill for any kind of voice work. I don't know of many voice talent who are working in Pro Tools. If you're working in Pro Tools as a voice talent, there's a good chance that you've got a reason, some kind of history or baggage that is making you choose to be working in Pro Tools. So for me, that history or baggage is that I've been doing music production for 20 years. And for music, for whatever reason, for music, Pro Tools is kind of the industry standard. You know, I've got plenty of complaints about Pro Tools, but anyone who spends time in any DAW is going to develop some complaints about it, some things they like and some things they do not like. And so that's my love-hate relationship with Pro Tools for sure. But with Pro Tools, it obviously it has all the tools that I need for voiceover. but it is definitely way overkill. There are free options out there that are perfectly adequate. Audacity probably being the main one. If you are already plugged into the Adobe suite, maybe you use Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator, Premiere, or After Effects for other work that you do, then Adobe Audition is perhaps a really good option for you. There's Reaper, there's Studio One, there's Twisted Wave, there's, Logic, Cubase, there's Ableton, there's all of these other options out there, and they all have their pros and cons. Many of those, okay, Jade, I see you're using Reaper. That's I hear lots of good things about Reaper. I understand it's pretty cheap, so maybe that's someday something I should just fork out the money and give Reaper a try. I'm sure there's a trial. Maybe I can just try that out just to see, because it's good to be able to speak a common language with other professionals who are working in a space. Obviously, all DAWs are kind of doing the same thing. They all have tracks. They all have, like the solo and mute buttons, just stuff like that. And most of them can work with the same groups of plugins. So there's definitely a shared language there, but it's obviously it's helpful the more fluent that language transfers there. Okay, we've got the chat up again. So we're going to make sure our split screen is correct here. Today with the tech issues. This is interesting. um, but we've got good stuff going on here. Let's see here. We might have to just forego the ability to monitor YouTube chat. I think that's what we're going to do because the split screen app isn't really working right now. So we're going to be in Twitch focus for our chat responses today. So anyone watching on YouTube, if you want to be able to chat and actually get some responses, please head over to twitch.tv. The link is in the description of this video, and you'll be there. So Jade and other viewers, if you have questions specifically about like, hey, that thing that you just did, is that like a Pro Tools only thing? So like, for example, I'm sure the ability to do this exists in other programs. But for example, when I've got a track like this one, something that I think is absolutely a must do before I hit export or render or bounce or whatever your DAW calls it, is to make sure that every one of my cuts, my edit points here, has a crossfade between them. Because even two clips that are silent, that hard cut from clip 1 to clip 2 can create just a little bit of digital noise, just this little blip, a click almost, that and it can drive you crazy. Like, where are these blips, clicks coming from? I'm looking at it and it's silent, and it's because for some reason, even in the year 2024, two hard cuts of basically silent clips butting up together can just generate this weird digital noise. So what you do is you apply a wee little crossfade. And different DAWs are going to handle this differently. But one amazing thing that Pro Tools can do is that I can set up a default, hey, Pro Tools, whenever I want a crossfade to happen, here are the parameters. And really the most important thing is just like, how big is the crossfade? How long as far as time? And I use just a really, really short, really fast crossfade. This is a 10 millisecond crossfade that I've got here. Double checking, yeah, length up here, 0.010, that's 10 milliseconds. And an amazing thing that I can do is if I select this entire track, there's a hotkey in Pro Tools, Control F, and that brings up this lovely little dialog box. And I know that, yeah, there's a lot of information here, but I just know, because I've done my homework, I know that if I just press enter after I bring up this dialog, that what this is going to do is going to apply my default crossfade of 10 milliseconds to every single edit point that is selected back here. It's not going to do anything because it won't replace crossfades. That's really important. So if I've done a really like surgical edit where I've gone in and made a custom crossfade, that window will not replace a crossfade. So it'll ignore crossfades that you've made by hand, but everywhere else it will apply your default crossfades. That is super, super useful, and I know for sure that I'm never going to have those little blip, blip, blip things. Um, yeah, so, and it saves those settings. So I just, anything you can do to save yourself time, do nice things for future you, is what I like to say. Um, don't never put yourself in a situation where you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, yesterday me, you're a jerk." Do nice things for your future self. Let's get back into audition mode. We do want to churn through these because we want to get to real audiobook work today. So, Wolf Ranch 30. Boy, like, good budget. It's an actual television ad, which maybe the budget should be a little bit higher, especially for TV 1 year. It is local, so depending on the market, this might actually be a fair rate if it's in a small market. Obviously, it was like if it was New York, this would not be a fair rate for like a New York local market for television. But um, Georgetown, just north of Austin. So I don't know the details of the specifics of the Texas television market, even though I lived there for many, many years. Um, that's where I grew up. But obviously, it's going to be a cheaper market than New York. So this is probably a fair market rate or close enough to it that we're not going to, we're not going to be mad about getting a job that pays this. And I now live up in the Northeast, and so I'm not too terribly concerned about getting conflicted out of gigs uh, for the North Austin area. But there are 88 people in front of us, and we want to be conservative with our time and make sure that we're providing ourselves with value and not doing things to hurt ourselves as far as opportunity costs. So we're going to move on from that. Likewise, this one, managed services, usually like to see that because there's usually good solid budget, all the details, like look at how much detail. These are always so fleshed out. You do love to see managed services, but 79 people in front of us in line. We're going to skip that one. Next here, 67 people in front of us in line, and we're only a 90% voice match for this one. So we're even less likely to be seen by the client for this one. So we're going to skip this one. 86 people in front of us. Boy, it would be nice to get a $2,000 payday, but you got to keep in mind, this is voices.com. They take a 20% chunk out of this number here. So you'd be looking at $1,600, but then obviously we're small businesses and we got to pay taxes. So that number gets chunked down even further. So we're going to pass on this one because there are 86 responses in front of us, and likewise 82 responses in front of us for this one, and that is voices.com done for the day. Well, until more roll in. It's useful to have an audible, like, get some kind of plugin or like little mini app. I recommend not having it be like on your phone. Obviously, when we're in the booth, we don't want to have the distraction of the phone, just that temptation of like, oh, I got an email ding. Well, while the phone's in my hand, let's just chat. Let's over to Instagram real quick and just see what's going on. Try to like be focused, have this be a workspace and a work time when you are in the booth. So in my browser up here, this little it may be a little dark for you to see, but I can click it here, and like this brings up my Gmail account. And so when an email comes in, I can hear it. It doesn't play like out loud through my computer speakers. I just hear it in my ear. So it's not, when an email comes in, it doesn't like ruin if I'm in the middle of a good voiceover take. It doesn't ruin that. Jade says that they cannot be trusted with the phone in the recording space. That's a good point. And also, depending on how sensitive your equipment is, if your phone is too close to the microphone, or if just the material on your walls is causing those electronic frequencies to bounce around in just the right way, you can get that trademark, that like Morse code type effect. Like, yeah, if you ever have that issue, by all means, leave the phone outside the booth. That is expert move by Jade there. But on the email update thing, because especially once we start doing the actual audiobook narration work, audiobook narration it's a marathon. Voiceover is a sprint. Audiobook narration is a marathon. So we're going to be doing a marathon later today. But when those emails come in, I'll hear it, and if it's a good voiceover job, we will pause the audiobook narration. I will have to switch to my different project within Pro Tools, but that's a quick change. It doesn't take but 10 seconds. We'll do the voiceover audition, and then we'll get back to work with the audiobook. So it actually becomes, we do all of our voiceover auditions sort of first thing, and maybe that gets us sort of in the headspace, the mood to do the audiobook narration, and then we do that. We set out and we start the marathon. Uh, we live in a nearly 200-year-old house, and it needs a lot of work, as you might imagine. And my mom's advice to me, as a relatively new owner of a giant project house, my mom was, you know how you take a bite, you know how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, which is like, my mom didn't say it with that accent. She does not have a Texas accent by any means, but that is where she currently lives. But the idea is, an audiobook is an enormous undertaking, no matter how long it is. Like a 5-hour audiobook is a huge undertaking. That can take you weeks and weeks, and it can be agonizing. Just like, it's a horrible metaphor, but it is apt, because if you just take it one bite at a time, it becomes manageable. You end up working your way through it. Let's take a look on Voice123. Let's stop yapping here. 10-minute short film, dark comedy, sure. The logline is: a struggling stand-up comedian searching for her voice has an emotional meltdown where her puppets come to life. Okay, so we're voicing the puppets. We've got Lancelot. So surely these are both British voices. No? Doesn't matter. We're confident enough in our British accent for audiobook work. Obviously, depending on the specific locality, if it's just sort of like, oh, just general BBC English, like, obviously, that's fine. This is interesting. We would probably look more closely at this, but it's got a very, very, very low budget, and we're just not. These aren't the kind of projects that we're currently interested in. When we were much, much lower down in the algorithm on Voice123, we really did. This would be an audition we would absolutely do, because that's kind of what you have to do to recover from being in a bad position in the Voice123 algorithm. So we're going to pass on that one, because we're in a much better position these days in the Voice123 algorithm. We're going to remember, the nice folks at Voice123 have asked that I obscure usernames if they aren't already obscured. So I'm going to check real quick on all three of these to see all three of them used the anonymizing feature, if you will. So none of these clients are identified. But we actually don't have much work to do here, because how do we eliminate auditions? First of all, in Voice123, if they are over the requested amount of proposals, that's an easy way to eliminate. We're not going to do that one, because it's so unlikely we'll be listened to in the first place. So 70 out of 50 proposals, not going to do that one. That would be quite a payday. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is right now, but €1,000, I would not say no to that, but it's so unlikely that we're even going to be listened to. So bummer, but that's all right. Here we go. 46 out of 40. We're over the requested amount. Here we're really close. But this client listens to almost everything they get, so that's good. Looks like maybe this is a, let's see here. So for something that's going to be running on Peacock, like, they're going to be doing paid placement ads on a, I can't imagine these are cheap ad buys. For the budget to be that low, it is a really very small part, but still, let's take a look here. Oh, they want, oh boy, looks like they want a whole process. We're going to pass on this, because this seems like they want us to sort of pre-fill out some, like, documents, applications stuff, and so I would be putting in information that I don't want publicly available. Like, a lot of my information this stream is not, an anonymous stream by any means. You can click links and get to my website, where there's all kinds of information about me. But, they might want, like, tax numbers and stuff like that. So because of that, and that we're by the time we finished all that, we might be past 25 proposals, we are going to pass on this one as well. So that is Voice123 done without doing a single audition. Some days it's like that, and that's all right. You shouldn't be relying solely on voices.com and Voice123 for your auditions or for your sort of lead generation. Those shouldn't be the only place that you're getting voiceover work. You should be doing direct marketing. You should be trolling LinkedIn and bothering people, check out Mark Scott. He is a Canadian guy who has an incredible body of work just about how to get into doing direct marketing as a voiceover professional. He's got some paid sort of coursework that you can do, and it's like a boot camp that'll like really build your business. But he's also got a podcast that is free. He's got lots of free resources on his website. And he's a legitimate working voice talent who also has just this amazing wealth of knowledge that he shares. And he understands that direct marketing is not fun for everybody. I don't find it fun. But he understands that. And so that's sort of whom it is geared toward. So Mark Scott is the name to look up there, and I think it's Mark with a C, if I'm not sure. If you just look up Mark Scott voiceover marketing, you'll find him. Okay, we are on ACX. Now we have already applied our mail filter, which ACX likes to forget. Let's actually refresh to make sure here. Okay, no new jobs have rolled in, and the only job, so we've already submitted auditions for or have otherwise passed on everything in the queue except for this very brand new one. And there's no cover uploaded for this title yet. A little bit of a red flag. Not a total red flag. Maybe they're still working on it. This is a red flag though. This project's only 30 minutes long. We've talked a lot about titles that are worth doing and not worth doing, like, doing a 30-minute title. And so real quick thing about how you bill stuff. Regardless of what ACX might actually like spit out as a number, as a quote, when you engage with someone, the minimum is 1 hour. So if it's an audiobook, yeah, okay, there are only 4,700 words, so this will come out to be about a half hour. But the minimum chunk of time that you're going to allow someone to book and be billed for is 1 hour. So if the rate that you decide on is $300 per finished hour, right in the middle of this range, you need to immediately come to an understanding that regardless of the number that ACX shows this client, you are going to need to be paid $300 minimum if this project does truly remain under 1 hour. $300 is the minimum that you are going to need to be paid for you as the ACX talent to click the I've been paid confirmation button at the very, very end of the process. That is the very last thing that you as the talent do before the finished audiobook goes through the ACX QA process and then on to distribution. It is your last chance to go, hold on, there's something fishy, like I haven't been paid, or like there's this like, oh, pending note on my bank statement. It says like this is an authorization but not a confirmed deposit. Do not click that confirm payment button until that authorization has converted into a confirmed deposit. So that is all to say. Maybe this is a legitimate, maybe it's like a proper medical text and they're actually for some reason wanting to put it out as something that is available on the Audible platform. That's all great. Different rights holders have different approaches, and this is perfectly valid, especially if it is like a medical school, like a school type thing, or it could be medical related material for students of other disciplines. When I was getting my MBA, I took some coursework that was sort of medical field adjacent. It obviously had a strong like business spin on it, but like those things exist, and so maybe this is for that. So maybe this is worth doing money wise. Like, yeah, I would read 4,700 words for $300 if it's gonna end up on Audible and everything. But especially if you're early on, you don't want to have a portfolio full of projects of this length. That isn't necessarily going to look very good down the line when you're approaching publishers and things like that. If they look through your portfolio and all they see are these like tiny little short, like basically pamphlets, they're going to have some questions. So this is one we're going to pass on. let's look at the audition script. Let's just look at it and see if it reads like a legitimate, you know, educational medical text or if it reads like a pamphlet. Introduction. Hmm. Ah, the illustrious nurse practitioners are the typical mid-level providers, each with their unique flair as FNP, AGA, CNP, or PMHNP. Okay, we're just going to keep scrolling. So it looks like they put, okay. Uh, I mean, it's also important to do a quick gut check of, is this AI generated? Um, and I'm thinking this feels real. This feels, you know, obviously we haven't read deeply, but just sort of scanning and looking at some of these. I'm not seeing any of the obvious markers. There's plenty of little markers here that make it seem like this is not ChatGPT garbage. Um, but still, this is we're gonna pass on on this one simply because it's such a short project. For audiobooks, I am at the point where I'm really trying to book things that are like more than 7 hours long. So, on that note, let's get to work. Got the energy drink there to try to extend our life a little bit here. So we're switching over to the audiobook template. Very important to build templates. So this is a blank template. So everything is set up here. So these clips here, I have color coded them. These are room tone. I hope you can see you may have to zoom in on your little monitor there, but these each have a little label there for me that says room tone. That lets me know that I can grab any of these, I can hit copy, and I can paste room tone wherever I need it. So that's super, super useful. There are plenty of great videos like getting room tone, good solid room tone of your space is so, so important. And Jade's excited. We're all excited. So this is let's bring up the script here. This is the latest version of this manuscript. So this is so fun that I'm actually able to. So the formatting is a mess because I've done some tweaks to the formatting. So I promise the finished book is actually going to be a properly formatted document because this author V.K. Passinen is a professional. Book one was so much fun to narrate. Really, really fun story, fun characters. This book, this series is like spanning such a cool, just it's the world that this author is building. Like it's going to be like as many. I just talked to him on the phone the other day. Originally, the plan was 5 books, but now he's talking novellas to sort of bridge gaps between books. So like we get like a little amuse-bouche between like book 2 and 3, perhaps, and just the scope of everything and the way, because I won't call them cliffhangers, but there are loose ends at the end of each of these books that like it's like, oh, okay, are these threads going to eventually start to weave together? And he's authors are funny because you'd think like me as the narrator, like we're partners in this creative enterprise, like tell me what's going to happen, but authors are like no, we want you to be surprised too. So I'm right there with you as far as not having all the information, but Tales from the Afterworld, this is a much more focused story, a much more human focused. So the broad idea of this series is, if you've ever read American Gods by Neil Gaiman, sort of the notion of like mythologies, you know, all the different pantheons, all the gods and goddesses that various cultures and groups of humans have believed in throughout history, they're all real in some form or fashion. It's all real. Maybe they're different aspects of the same being or whatever, but they're all real and they all really are interacting with each other in these interesting ways, and they meddle in the affairs of humans and in fun ways. This is a very, shall we say, gritty story. There's a lot of profanity. So if you have a problem with profanity, I haven't marked this stream as like an adults only stream or anything like that because it's not like super horrible, gory, gratuitous. I'm not reading like a grindcore novel here. It's what I call realistic profanity. It's how That's how adults speak, especially when they're put into, you know, high pressure situations at times. Sometimes we swear, and that's okay. Um, there are no trigger warning type things to be concerned of. Um, there's no material like that that we have to be concerned with. Um, there is at some point one character. He's an old Vietnam veteran who does use one slur for the Vietnamese people a couple of times. I will flag that as we get close to it. If you want to step away from the stream for a couple of minutes, especially if you're, I don't know, if you've got the audio of the stream playing out loud where other people can hear, you might not want that word being broadcast out there. There are there are a few words that I will not narrate, and none of those words appear in this one. I don't that those slurs are not things that I say, you know, in my life or anything. But as actors, like this is our job. We are reading copy, um, and so yeah, we're gonna jump into it. So for audiobooks, for the absolute beginners out there, the things we read and we don't read. So ACX is very kind in that they will generate some opening credits for you to read. And the opening credits will be. I'm not going to open it up there because opening up the project page might reveal some information that I don't want revealed just yet on the stream. That'll be for when we do the like full on like here's what a finished hour produced like looks like stream. But the copy will be something like Accidental Healer, Tales from the Afterworld, Book 2, written by V.K. Passanen, narrated by Jimmy Moreland. That is probably word for word what the opening credits will be. But we're not going to record the opening credits now because we're not 100% sure, and we don't want to open up that window. You know what? We're going to do this. We're going to switch over to here. We're going to open up the production tab and just make sure that we're going to be okay bringing this up. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, my projects, in production, Accidental Healer, and then it will be under Produce Audiobook. Well, it used to be under Produce. Okay, now there's a new pop-up window. So we're going to not show all of this. So there used to be a special tab, Produce Audiobook, and then there would be just, the information would be there. Now there's a pop-up, it looks like. So let's actually bring up... Okay, we're just going to copy and paste this information so you can see exactly. So there's a cool little pop-up window. That's actually kind of cool. I like that they've done that. So we're actually going to back out of this so that information. All right, we'll just go over to here, and now we're back in, and we can bring this up. So we're actually just going to paste this copyright information right here, and we're going to do not just a Control V, because look at that mess. We're going to do a Control Shift V. That is to paste special, or in some, it might just automatically do a paste without formatting. We want unformatted text here. So there we go. Beautiful. That is legible. We can read that. So we're going to go ahead and read the opening credits. We are not going to read the closing credits right now. In my opinion, it is important that the day that you start reading, that you start recording your book, do the opening credits right into chapter 1 or prologue or whatever. Don't do the opening credits that same day. Do the opening credits after you've narrated the last chapter. Preferably like just finish, say the end or whatever the final line is, and then immediately record the closing credits, because just the differences in the timbre of your voice, it's going to be jarring if you say the end and then this very different version of your voice comes along and says, this has been da 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 da. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and hit record. Or you know what? We have to save this as a new project, and that's very exciting. So save as. We've got so many. We're going to briefly, as I navigate my file tree, we're going to make sure that we're not revealing client names here. Work archive. We're not going to save it in the work archive. File management, big deal. Pro Tools sessions, audiobooks. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to create a new audiobooks folder. And then we're going to create another new folder for this particular audiobook. And I have we'll go ahead and bring it back here. I've got a silly little naming convention for myself, which I just do a 3-digit, the number of audiobook this is. So this is audiobook number 32 for me. So 032 space accidental healer. That's what this project is. Go there. And now I'm going to name the file 032 accidental healer. There we go. So now we can make a mess on this project. Now the other thing we got to do, we want to keep track of our work. So what I like to do for keeping track, and again, we're going to briefly go full screen so that I am not revealing too much here. We're bringing up our big old spreadsheet, and we're going to bring up our little timer thing here. So I'm sure there are more elegant ways for me to track my time, but here's the timer that I use. It's a Rubik's Cube timer. And I like it because it sits in a browser tab. I press space, it starts the timer. I press space, it stops the timer. If I just press space again, it starts a new timer. But it does keep, if that was an accident, interesting, they've changed things a little bit on this website, but it does keep track of all the time. So I hit space again, and maybe we will let this one roll for a little bit longer. I hit that, boom, it logs that. I am a Rubik's Cube solver. And so that is sort of how I came to be aware of this website and just sort of decided like, yeah, sure, that's what I'll use. But it's just really easy. It's just getting over here is just as simple as hitting Alt-Tab and the space button. And then this is my mega spreadsheet. People have asked if I would like sell them this spreadsheet. Like, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that, but I'll sort of, maybe at some point I'll do a full deep dive walkthrough of this spreadsheet of all the, like, okay, if you want to do this, like, what does that look like? Some of the cells are a bit broken right now. We are going to actually go to, we're again going to make sure the cells are not broken on the sheet that has like all of like, I've got like banking information there. So we're going to be careful, but we are going to go to the real sheet. So here it is. Here's all the chapters. This book has 94 chapters. And I've done a bit of pre-work here. So the things that I've done, you see I've got a pages column here. I actually went through and like, I've got my tablet and I'm actually like swiping and I'm counting the pages. I wanted to actually do that rather than like ballpark it by numbers. I want to actually know like, okay, is this actually more like 4.5 pages? Because if you just like subtracted the page numbers, maybe that would just show you 5. I want a more accurate idea because I've got a bunch of formulas set up that give me an estimated recording time for everything that I do. So this helps me plan out my days. I know that, say, I want to record for 2 hours a day. Just an easy day, an easy 2-hour recording day. Then I can go, okay, well then I need to just record from here, and I would just like quickly ballpark and go like, cool, I'm narrating from chapters 2 to 10 today. And just that peace of mind of knowing. But as we work, we're going to, with the help of our Rubik's Cube timer, we're going to keep track of the actual time that we're spending recording, and we're going to put that in this column here. And then later that gets used to calculate our actual, all of our fun ratios and stuff. So that's all to say that we're going to do this even for the opening credits. It seems silly, but we're going to do it. So let's make sure that we're set up on okay, so we've got our, let's go ahead and just highlight it here just to make sure that we know. And it looks like I was right, word for word, on the opening credits. So let's see here. We are armed to record here. Now, if we Alt-Tab twice, we'll be on the timer. And then we'll need to Alt-Tab twice again. Usually I'm narrating off of a tablet, but now I've got the now I've got Twitch chat on my tablet. So it's a little bit of a different setup for me, but it's all for the live stream, baby. It's all for the views. So let's see here. It's going to be, again, Alt-Tab twice, Alt-Tab twice. Easy, easy. Let's do this. Alt-tab twice. Oh, come on. We're going to click. We're going to be Luddites, and we're going to click. 1, 2, 3. Accidental Healer. Accidental Healer. Tales from the Afterworld, Book 2. Written by V.K. Passanen. Narrated by Jimmy Moreland. And Alt-tab over here. So that took us 17 seconds. We hit 0 hours, 0 minutes, 17 seconds. There we go. Now we move on to the prologue. Now this project is a little bit different because this is my first time doing a dual narration project, which is very exciting for me. I've never done a dual narration project, and I've got a very, very talented narrator, co-narrator working with me. Teresa Bakken is her name. I'm hoping I've pronounced that right. Obviously that's... Oh! That makes me realize these opening credits are bogus because obviously I need to credit my co-narrator. So we're actually going to scrap that. We're going to move past the opening credits. We'll break the rule that I just talked about recording opening credits and then going right into it, because I need to make sure that I pronounce her name exactly correct and that's how it goes. And I'm curious. I am sort of the producer on it. We'll see about who gets first billing. Teresa's a mega pro. She's got many more books in her portfolio than I do. She's a real pro, but those are things we'll figure out later. But what I've got over in this column here, these X's, these are my chapters. And the ones without X's are Teresa's chapters. So we've got the prologue. It's super short, 1 page. So let's knock out the prologue. We've got this here set up, ready to go. We've got the prologue set up to record. And all right, let's go. Oops. Oops, wasting time. Welcome back to my Tales from the Afterworld. Now that you know who I am, I will take you back to where the end began. I touched upon it without knowing in my final work as a mortal, but only scratched the surface. My soul was young. Let's see here. Oh, come on now. Oh, come on now. But only scratched the surface. My soul was young, and I was still unaware of all the machinations driving events beyond reality's curtains. Behind, not beyond. Let's just reread that whole line. But only scratched the surface. My soul was young, and I was still unaware of all the machinations driving events behind reality's curtain. Nor did I have the all-knowing eye, without which this work and warning wouldn't have been possible. Let's change how we inflect there. Driving events behind reality's curtain. Nor did I have the all-knowing eye, without which this work and warning wouldn't have been possible. My hope is that this labor of penance will help the dying afterworld grasp the how and why we reached this precipice, this Ragnarok. My stomach made a noise. This Ragnarok. I will not... This Ragnarok. I will not return to these tales as a major player until the dark clouds of apocalypse fill the skies of my former reality. That is not to say I don't play a role. That role will become evident, as will my guilt in everything that Be a little bit more deliberate. That is not to say I don't play a role. That is not to say I don't play a role. That role will be... That is not to say I don't play a role. That role will become evident, as will... My monitor made a noise? That is not to say I don't play a role. That role... My stomach made a noise? The life of an audiobook narrator. That is not to say I don't play a role. That role will become evident, as will my guilt in everything that transpired. N. Reaper. That... Come over here, stop the timer, 2:32. Enter that in here. 00:02:32. And now we're skipping all the way to chapter 5. So, for anyone who was hoping that they were going to get a free audiobook by listening to this live stream, unfortunately, you're going to get about half of an audiobook. Interesting that didn't start at 0. That's okay. You're going to get about half an audiobook, and you're going to get all the mistakes that go along with the narration. So if you really do want to hear the full audiobook, and I promise these are good books, I imagine it'll be released on Audible like early June, I think is the target here, which is a month from now. So it's not a super quick deadline, but given the ACX lead times that we need to account for, it's going to go out there. So this chapter, another short one, only 2.5 pages. Let's open up the timer here. And let's scroll down to chapter 5 this time. 3, 4, and 5. Now, you may, if you're reading along on the copy, you may notice that there are a couple of typos. This manuscript was awaiting another round of edits, but I am aware of all those edits, and so I will spot them when I see them, and I'll just make the change in situ, if you will. Okay. This will be fun because you'll see how I handle little sort of intro headers like this. And later when we do the edit, this is, I've got a really fast way to not just handle this, but to handle it in a way that is replicable, that is really easy to repeat and involves, and this is why I've got these different lengths of room tone up here. It's basically just copy and pasting certain lengths of room tone in a way that I know whenever I have these kinds of headers, that's how I always do it. And that way, my audiobooks are super consistent from title to title. Like every time you pick up a book narrated by Jimmy, it's going to be that way. You're going to always hear it that way. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and turn on the timer. Come back to the copy, then come to here. 5. Dusk, Saturday, September 1, 2007. Mama Maria's Southwestern Bar and Grill, Packer City, Colorado. Ex-Army Ranger Ryan Mender kissed his wife Suzanne and ruffled their son Alex's tight curls at the rear exit. He couldn't believe Alex was nearly 7 and felt blessed too soon. Let's see here. Yeah. Alex's tight curls at the rear exit. He couldn't believe Alex was nearly 7 and felt blessed to soon be celebrating. I was Alex's tight curls at the rear exit. He couldn't believe Alex was nearly 7 and felt blessed to soon be celebrating it after January's scare. And oh, did they have plans for his 2nd birthday party at his grandmother's namesake. Let's see here. My stomach is, we might actually, for the sake of keeping things interesting on the live stream, we might, we're going to narrate this chapter, then we're going to edit what we've got, and we'll go through the whole pickups process. Celebrating it after January's scare. And oh, did they have plans for his 2nd birthday party at his grandmother's namesake. Suzanne inhaled contentment. He could almost read her mind after a decade. Suzanne inhaled contentment. He could almost read her mind after a decade and 8 wedding anniversaries, the last by far their happiest, even though it began with him in the hospital bed. It was the morning after the miracle, and there we go, even though it began with him in the hospital bed. This is a change here that in a hospital bed. The last by far their happiest, even though it began with him in a hospital bed. It was the morning after the miracle of his bloodline drove Alex's leukemia into remission, and according to everyone who witnessed it, resurrected him. Him is referring to Alex, not to Ryan. Gotta make these decisions, and according to everyone who witnessed it, resurrected him from the dead. She panned the packed restaurant and asked, "Hard to believe, huh?"
Yeah, he said as he wrapped an arm around her and squeezed and enjoyed all the happy faces. Alex looked up at him, and he fought to keep his eyes from misting. 15 months had passed since they opened the doors of the newly named restaurant. My monitor made a little noise there. That's annoying. That's okay. And he fought to keep his eyes from misting. Let's reread that line there. You don't want to be too precious. This is a marathon again. You can't be recompleting little legs of your marathon. The tiny imperfections are what make this special. Otherwise, they would just have an AI voice read it. And enjoyed all the happy faces. Alex looked up at him, and he fought to keep his eyes from misting. 15 months had passed since they opened the doors of the newly named restaurant. Before that, it was called the Old Prospector. It had been a town landmark for over a century, and before it was respectable. Okay. That it was called the Old Prospector. It had been a town landmark for over a century, and before it was respectable, an old dance hall / brothel in what was Hell's Acre in the old... let's see here. I think that's going to be a fine edible. An old dance hall / brothel in what was Hell's Acre in the old mining town. My stomach made a noble. An old dance hall...
Start eating before this stream.
An old dance hall / brothel... Let's actually back up to the beginning of this, because I feel like I might not be giving myself a good enough... That it was called the Old Prospector.
And now we've got trucks. We got trucks.
That it was called the Old Prospector. It had been a town landmark for over a century, and before it was respectable, an old dance hall / brothel in what was Hell's Acre in the old mining town. Alex tugged on Suzanne's coat. Can we go? I left my Harry Potter book at Hogwarts. I was getting to a really good part when we left this morning. Hogwarts was what Alex called the Watchtower, where the Menders had lived blissfully since spring 2006, minus the previous fall. That was also when they bought the old restaurant that had been an important part of Ryan's life since his first visit with his granddad Edwin and his white uncle Mel the summer before he started kindergarten in Grand Junction. Okay. Oh, wait, that's Suzanne. That was quite a sentence, but I feel like we got through it. Positron will tell the true tale. He started kindergarten in Grand Junction. Oh, this is Suzanne. He started kindergarten in Grand Junction.
Stomach. Ooh, man. That's the main reason that we're going to stop after this chapter. We're just going to edit so that our stomach can make as much noise as it wants to do.
He started kindergarten in Grand Junction. Okay, we'll go in a minute, said Suzanne. Now, Ryan, if the new cook needs any help, don't hesitate. Never mind. Don't call. No point. You need to head up to Denver next week.
I know what this is about.
If the new cook needs any help, don't hesitate. Never mind. Don't call. No point. You need to head up to Denver next week. I don't like being out in the boonies without a sat phone. Alex looked at his shoes. I'm sorry, he said. She looked down.
More stomach noise?
I'm sorry, he said. She looked down. Don't be. Accidents happen. Just be more careful next time.
That must have been audible through the stream. Okay.
I'm sorry, he said.
Where are we?
I'm sorry, he said. She looked down. Don't be. Accidents happen. Just be more careful next time, she said, concerning his last conversation with Nana Noreen and Gamba James, which ended with the satellite phone plummeting to the base of Tower Rock. Ryan chuckled. Well, Suzanne, you know what they say. You can't always have your castle and your cell coverage, too. Her eyebrows rose with her drawl expression. All right. I'll head up to Denver Monday morning. You promise? I promise. And I also called WorldNet. They can't send anyone out to fix the internet until the 14th. Are you kidding me? I wish I were. Dang it, she sighed as the front door swung open.
More stomach noises, but that's a good opportunity to
So a benefit of reading on the tablet is that the scroll is just, the swipe of your hand. The scroll is as silent as you can make the contact with your finger against the screen. Whereas if you're scrolling on your screen with like your mouse, depending on your mouse, that scroll might be like clickety, 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 click. It might be a really loud scroll. For us, though, our mouse is frankly just old enough and well worn enough that those gears are nice and rounded off. And so, like, we would really have to be going nuts on the scroll for it to come through the mic there. So we were able to scroll and preserve what was a pretty good section of narrating there. So let's keep going. She sighed as the front door swung open. Scrawny Eugene Lee walked through the door. So Eugene Lee he's our racist Vietnam veteran. So I'm giving a little bit of immediate foreshadowing that, like, Eugene is a bit of a villain. He's like, we don't like him. And the narrator is a character. You gotta, whether you're narrating even nonfiction, the narrator is, in theory, it's probably the author's point of view, but even in, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, like, the narrator is a character. The narrator has a point of view. And in this case, the narrator is letting the listener know right off the bat, we don't like Eugene Lee. And the reasons for it will become apparent once you start hearing the kinds of things he has to say. She sighed as the front door swung open. Scrawny Eugene Lee walked through the door with his usual scowl, threadbare. We're starting a list there. Got to make sure we did that right. She sighed as the front door swung open. Scrawny Eugene Lee walked through the door with his usual scowl, threadbare. Through the door. I'm having a hard time with that. She sighed as the front door swung open. Scrawny Eugene Lee walked through the door with his usual scowl, threadbare red Mackinaw coat, ratty faded jeans, and favorite boots that were coming apart at the soles. He was a Vietnam vet and cantankerous boots that were coming apart at the soles. He was a Vietnam vet and cantankerous racist with a chip on his shoulder larger than Sisyphus's stone. He was far from lovable and loved by only one person that Ryan could think of. That was his wife, Charlotte, who ran the most popular coffee shop in town, which was the only coffee shop since no one counted the Greasy Spoon. Eugene was also Brigham Norsworthy's nephew, the deceased former... Since no one counted the Greasy Spoon. Eugene was also Brigham Norsworthy's nephew, the deceased former resident and builder of the Watchtower. Eugene let it be known that the Watchtower should have been his by right since he'd been the caretaker for the dozen years after his uncle's stroke. Moreover, Eugene considered himself a Packer City founding ancestor since his family had lived in the area through thick and very thin since its founding. He made no effort to hide his bottomless resentment toward his uncle's spoiled children after they sold the castle out from under him to the hoity-toity Menders. Well, gotta go. Have fun, Suzanne said with a grin. She pecked Ryan's pursed lips and was out the back before Eugene uttered his first vulgar word for the night. There we go. Let's stop our timer. Feel like that went pretty well. So we've got the estimate of the recording time, and for right now, that estimate is built off of like a calculation based on the page numbers versus the number of pages in the book, and the number of words in the book. So there's some like division happening there. So basically, at first, this is just a wild estimate, but over time, I will basically be this recording time, rather than being based on an estimate based on division, this recording time will be based on actual recording that has happened. So as we get closer and closer to the end of the book, these estimates will become more and more accurate to where often I am like within 1 second of the estimated recording time. And that kind of feels good. It feels like I've done some Excel magic when that works out. But for the first 10 or so chapters, I just let the estimate, the sort of page number based estimate, be the guide. And then after about 10 chapters, I'll switch it over. But for now, we're going to enter in, again, what was our number? 1103. Oops, I just closed that tab. Let's bring it back open. Control-Shift-T will reopen a tab that you may have accidentally closed. So 0 hours, 11 minutes, 3 seconds. So now we get to do the fun part of editing and yielding some finished hours. So here's where I'm actually, for when I'm doing, let's see, do we have a voiceover audition? We do, and holy, that has got a budget on it. We're going to go ahead and archive that. We're going to head over to Voices, reload this page, see how many people are already in line. Only 9 people in line. I need an alert sound. I need a big old siren, like, alert, alert, there's a high-paying job on voices.com, and it's looking for a Texas voice. I've got family members who have gone to UT. I considered doing UT. Slow Southern drawl, gravitas, Texan, mature, gravel. I am so surprised I'm not seeing the name. Sam Elliott. This is a spot where Sam Elliott is that's what they're looking for. So we're feeling a little bit dehydrated right now, and that's perfect for this read. So we're gonna try to we're gonna give them a lot. We're gonna give them a lot. Big, bold, and a little weird. Some things are just made for Texans. Hook 'em. Big, bold, and a little big, bold, and a little weird. Some things are just made for Texans. Hook 'em. Some things require bigger pastures. Some things are just made for Texans. Are you? We're going to do another full read of both. Big, bold, and a little weird. Some things are just made for Texans. Some things are just made for Texans. Hook 'em. Some things require bigger pastures. Some things are just made for Texans. Are you? Okay. I feel like that second one wasn't really different enough to justify making it a whole second read, but if we submit these spots sort of like A-B rather than A-A-B-B, if that makes sense, then I think that'll be fine. Let's listen. Big, bold, and a little big, bold, and a little weird. So you always want to put your best foot forward, and we'll actually delete these little bits of noise here. You want to put your best foot forward, and I think that the second read overall was better. And it looks like that's starting here. So we're going to drag the second read to the beginning. We're going to edit from here. Big, bold, and a little weird. There's a weird click here. Big, bold, and it's in the middle there. We're going to trust in our RX tool. Big, bold. We're going to let RX handle a little weird. Some things are just made for tech, and a little weird. Some things, a little more, a little weird. Some things are just made for Texans. Some things are just made for Texans. We're gonna use the first part of that, and then here's the hook 'ems. Are just made for Texans. Hook 'em. We need a little bit more gap there. So we're gonna paste in some room tone. Made for Texans. Hook 'em. Good. We're going to use the room tone to give a little bit of a gap before the next spot. Hook 'em. Some things require bigger pastures. Some things are just made require bigger pastures. Some things are just made for Texans. Are you? Okay, big. Okay, there we go. So now we're going into the first take, which we are putting second. And we'll make sure that we include a note to the client that we have given them 2 tags. Texans, are you? Big, bold, and a little weird. Some things are just made for Texans. Hook 'em. Okay, that's great as it is. Choirs.
Let's see this gap.
Hook 'em. Some things require bigger pastures. Some things are just made Texans. Are you?
Little short
Just
gap there, and then
made
this
for
is probably good.
Texans. Are you?
Okay, we're going to call that good to go. Hitting that Control F for my crossfade dialogue there.
See how easy that was?
Here's our UT made for Texas. Reply to job. We're actually going to do a couple things here. We're going to copy paste in a little bit of our Texas thing to start with. Let's see here. Native Texan here. I've had plenty of family. I have plenty of Longhorns in my family. That's the way to say it. I have plenty of Longhorns in my family. And then here's the rest of my generic spiel. Oh crap, we're gonna save this, switch over to our directed session thing so we get that. There we go. And then do for no additional fee. Oh, and also, I've given you 2 takes and a thanks. Right? There we go. Okay. Now our quote here, we're going to put it at $22.90. Just slightly higher than the middle of their budget range. You know, it hurts to be giving that much away, but I'd rather have $1,832 than not. So that's how I'm quoting this. So let's send it off. There are 21 people in front of us already. But we're not going to agonize over that or worry about like, oh, wouldn't it be nice with that money I could buy a new guitar? You can't worry about it. Whether it's audiobooks or voiceover stuff, you can't fire and forget. Move on. So we are going to move back on to our audiobook. Save that. Do I need to have... Oh, I guess we'll just have the timer up. Actually, I hate the idea of having the timer up. We're going to drag this and make this fully full screen. Look at this. Look at this luxury. All this room for activities. And you're going to see how the edit goes here. So I'm going to do my best to... I can chat pretty well during the edit, but we're going to be showing off a little bit here because we're going to try to zoom through this edit for the sake of my own brain. We're going to, I don't know what's going on here. We're going to, what is going on there? Oh, we're in slip mode for some reason. We want to be in shuffle mode. Okay. So you got to learn your DAW. We'll have certain modes. So for example, let's go back into slip mode. So here's the difference between slip mode and shuffle mode. These other modes, I never use spot. I'll use grid mode when I'm doing music. Very, very useful when you're doing music. But otherwise, for voice work, I'm only ever in either in shuffle or slip. Slip mode means, say I've got two clips back to back. Slip modes means I can click and drag and move around, and as I move this one around, it does not affect anything in the future. It doesn't affect what's behind it. So I can have them overlap. If I drag out the beginning or end of one of these, it doesn't affect anything else. It only affects this clip that I'm dragging, and then obviously if you overlap, like that has an effect, but it doesn't follow on to any following clip. So if I paste another one here, doing all of this stuff, it doesn't change anything there. But when I'm in shuffle mode, so if you look up here in the corner, the hotkey for that, for me in Pro Tools is the tilde key. But I put it in shuffle mode, and now anything I do to this clip has follow-on effects for everything there. So I'm going to trim the front of this. See that? The whole line adjusted accordingly. So that can be like, oh, that seems like, why the hell would you ever use that? It's extremely useful when you're doing your voiceover edit, because let's take a look here. So let's take a look at a cut here. If I was in slip mode, like maybe my pacing was perfect. That's not a great, this is a better example. Maybe my pacing was perfect when I was doing the punch and roll on this, to where when I drag this out, those consonants are going to end at the same point, but they don't quite. But that's not enough to make a difference. But it can make a difference if your pickup pace, if your punch and roll pace was not the same as the original take pace. You can really screw yourself to where, like, you might do this and be like, oh, like, okay, I want to end it there, but I still have this like nasty bit here. Okay, do I have to like do that? Oh, and then I have to like nudge the. It's a mess. It's a nightmare. Don't do that to yourself. If you can figure out how to access a shuffle-like feature to where, for the first part of the take, I drag it out to the end. That moves everything back to where now I just grab here, and I know that's right. I don't have to worry about, oh, did it match? And then like, oh, am I shifting things around? Because if I shifted things around by hand in slip mode, say I did this, and it's like, oh, but like I wanted to maybe like that. The problem with what I just did, the way I just did that edit, is visible at the next edit point. Now I've got this gap. So the little edits that you do will compound to where by the time you get to the end of a long audiobook chapter, you might have these enormous gaps, because it's just, they're going to build and compound, and it's going to be a nightmare. I would not wish, I could never edit an audiobook chapter in slip mode. Occasionally I might switch over to it. That's why I'm so familiar with the hotkey. But just a little pro tip: figure out what your DAW's version of shuffle and slip mode are, and play around with them. See what workflow works for you. This is what works for me. So at the beginning of every chapter, I copy paste this green bit of room tone. It is 75 milliseconds, 0.75 seconds. So it's just under a second. And then let's double check. Do I say the word prologue or anything?
Welcome back to my...
No, I just come in with welcome back. So this is the first thing that the listener is going to hear after the opening credits. So for opening, I do 3/4 of a second of silence. And at the very end, I do 3 seconds of silence. So I've got this 300 over here. That's 300 milliseconds. That is 3 seconds, or however that math works out. I've been considering shortening that and actually using the 250, but I've got a system down, so we're going to keep using the 300. We'll see what my co-narrator does. That might be an interesting thing that we have to figure out when we're unifying all of our audio. But we're going to go ahead and hit space on the timer, and then we're going to edit. And this is a short chapter. I think this thing's only it's a minute. So I'm going to forecast that our edit is going to take 20 to 30 seconds. That's how fast we're going to be, even though we've been yapping about it forever. We're going to yap a little bit more here. A useful thing, having set processes that you do every time. So me pasting in this green bit of room tone. I also know that when I'm editing, I've got a preferred level of zoom that I know feels comfortable with. Like, I know at a certain level of zoom that my cursor is going to travel certain distance based on how far I move my hand when I'm at that zoom level. And my eyeballs are used to saying, okay, I know that breaths look like this at this zoom level. And that zoom level, if I'm looking at my ruler up here at the top, that zoom level is a granularity of 0.2 seconds. So that's where I am here. So each tick is 0.2 seconds, 3.0, 3.2, 3.4, and so forth. This is what feels comfortable for me. I'm already in my happy place. So we're going to head over, we're going to hit space, come back, and now we're editing. There we go. And I'm just hitting tab to jump to the next edit point, and then I'm dragging these out. You'll notice that I am not listening. I only listen if there's something weird. And there we go. We do this, we drag in the 3 seconds, 19 seconds. All right. We mark that down. On edit time, this is for the prologue, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 19 seconds. And then we can actually mark the finished hours. The end of our clip is 1 minute and 3 seconds. So 0 hours, 1 minute, 3 seconds. And what this gives us now is our ratio. So our production ratio for the prologue is 2.7 to 1. So if the prologue was an hour long, in theory, all of that work would have taken us 2.71 hours. So I've done all of this work ahead of time. I also have it broken down to where I know what that 2.71 is constituted of. So I can see that my booth ratio, my reading ratio was 2.4 to 1, which is a bit slower than I like it to be. I like to be close to 2 to 1 is good for me because I'm not the greatest cold reader. I've got like stuttering and dyslexia. You heard me. But 2.4 to 1 is where we were. The edit ratio of 0.3, again, it could be better, but that's fine. But I love the data. And so I wanted to share this and say that, like, however good you are at tracking your data, even if you don't have an awesome spreadsheet right from the front. I know it's ugly. My formatting pro friends out there who do slide decks all day for a living, they would probably laugh at my formatting. I know it's a bit ugly, but it's useful. And even if you don't have like the Excel skills to like build something like this for yourself just yet, track the data because you can always plug in the data later. So that's something to keep in mind. So we're going to move on to the next one here. This one, I even have an estimate for what the edit will take, but this edit includes, my data is a little dirty because this edit includes time from when I was doing the dog clicker method of recording. So there's punch and roll and there's the dog clicker, or sort of like a long roll method. It might be what some people might call it. But basically that means you hit record, and when you make a mistake, you click a dog clicker, and that creates visible spikes in your waveform that make it easier to do some visual editing. But for dog clicker method, like, the edit does take so much longer because you kind of have to listen to at least every transition point to make sure that you've gotten it just right. Punch and roll saves you so much time on the edit. And so because these edit times are drawing from a data set that includes like 10 books that were done with the dog clicker method, these edit times are longer than we're actually going to see. So I'm usually at like 40% of whatever this number is. So 3 minutes and 30 seconds, I would guess that I'm going to be closer to 1 minute 30 seconds on this edit. Let's find out. Head over to chapter 5 here. Make it big. Come back here. Just double checking I've got the correct bit of... and this is where we're going to see what we do for those little header bits. And this will be really simple because it's a simple header. We're actually going to do a little bit of the work ahead of time. I'm going to drag. Pro Tools, it's really easy to drag tracks around. So the room tone, I'm going to drag it down for 2 reasons. So that I can grab it really easily when I'm working at this first bit of audio, and you'll see how I do that. But it's also, it's like a bookmark. It's like and I'm not talking like a browser bookmark. I'm talking about a physical bookmark in a book. It is a physical, I've got it a different color. The track is yellow here. It looks different because it's this nice little rainbow collection of colors. So like if I'm zoomed out and I've got like, imagine I've got this fully like populated project with all this audio, I know where I am because I've got my room tone sort of set where either my next edit chapter is going to be or where my next narrate is going to be. The narrate is obvious because that's the next empty track. But with this project, because I'm doing dual narration, I've got loads of empty tracks that I don't actually need to do anything with. I'll clean all that up later at some point. It'll be a fun process, actually importing Teresa's audio and working with it. That'll be fun. I don't know if I'll do that on stream or not. It might be too embarrassing to stumble through that on stream, but we'll find out. But let's head over and we're going to hit the timer here, and 1, 2, 3, go. We're just going to grab this, replace that here. This bit of silence I know I want to replace, and I'm going to Alt click and drag, And then here is another spot where we're going to, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, Alt, click, and drag. If you Alt, click, and drag, that copies whatever you have clicked. I think that's a pretty common, like I know that's a thing in like Photoshop. I know that's a thing in several Adobe products. I'm pretty sure that's a thing in Premiere and After Effects as well. I don't know if that's like a Windows shell type of command. I'd be interested to know what the equivalent in like the Mac environment is. I'm deleting this tiny little bit of click here. Just visually, you'll learn for yourself what nasal clicks, sinus clicks, mouth clicks, you'll learn what they look like. And you need to trust in your tools. Here's a spot where I'm going to listen because at the end of the previous take, I've got a breath here, and I don't think I want that breath. Let's listen.
Ryan, if the new cook needs any help, don't hesitate. Never mind. Don't call. No point.
That's fine. Again, this is a marathon, and any audiobook that you do, any individual chapter of an audiobook you do, like if you listened back to it, you would be like, oh my God, like I want to fix this, I want to fix that. And you could probably fix sentence by sentence something in every single sentence. But ain't nobody got time for that. This is audiobook. You need to respect your own time and move along. And look at this, 1 minute 30, just like we predicted. How about that? Voice talent, know thyself. So we're going to put in 1 minute 30 into the timer here. Colon, 01, 30. And then we're going to put in the actual time, which I see over here is 4 minutes 25, 04, 25. And there we go. Let's just see what the ratio is here. We got a 2.3 ratio. Oh no, sorry, that's the weighted ratio. So this is more Excel. The ratio for that individual chapter was 2.84, so not very exciting. I'm moving kind of slow because we're engaging. We're a little bit distracted here, but that's okay. But the weighted ratio, these by themselves are garbage numbers. They do nothing. What happens, and maybe there's a more elegant way to do this, but it works. What happens is at the very end, when this column gets summed, I get a weighted ratio. So for example, if I had read the prologue super fast, if my production ratio on that was like 1.3 to 1, like I read it through without a mistake and then the edit went quick, then it might actually be a 1.3 to 1 ratio. If, when you're calculating your book level ratio, that prologue was so short, it's a minute long. If you weight that the same as your really long chapters, that's not a true representation of like word for word, like on a by word basis, what's your ratio? And you can actually see there's already a divergence here. This column here is simply averaging, a simple average of these two numbers. And say, let's just put it in for example, if we had a 1.3. By a simple average, that would say, oh, my ratio for this book so far is a 2.07. That's so good. That's amazing. But that is garbage data because it's not weighted properly by how long those chapters were. And so you're giving way too much weight in this number to the super short chapter. This effect is really obvious with like especially the opening credits because imagine like if you don't stumble, your opening credits ratio is probably going to be very close to 1. And then if you weight a 20-second file the same as a 20-minute file, like you're going to have garbage data if you don't account for that. And here, this accounts for it. So in the universe where I read the prologue at a 1.3, a really fast ratio, that still has a pretty big effect because we've only read 2 chapters. But imagine we've read 40 chapters, that sort of, it will all come out in the wash and be appropriately weighted based on what I've got set up here. So that's just when you're setting up your own mega table here, something to keep in mind is like, oh, am I properly weighting stuff? And so at the end of a project, the only number that I sort of save and put into my master file of like, here's sort of tracking my progress book by book. Like, am I getting faster? Like, oh, like what's happening? Am I genre by genre slower at reading this versus that? Really good to track all those things. this is the only number I keep out of that. I do keep the booth ratio, so the recording ratio versus the edit ratio. I do keep those as well because that's useful to know. Obviously, to be able to track like, hey, when I switched from dog clicker to punch and roll, my edit ratio went from being like nearly a 1.0 to about a point three is about what I tend to be at. But enough yapping. Let's proof. The fun of proofing. So here we go. We're going to grab all this. We are going to go ahead and do the cool thing about, we're going to undo that so you can actually see. Talking about the auto crossfade stuff. We're going to make both of these small. We're going to move the room tone down below so that I don't accidentally crossfade the room tone. We're going to grab all of this. The cool thing about the crossfade thing is that it works over multiple tracks. So I've got all of this audio selected. Hit Control F. I just hit enter and I can double check, but all of the audio on this track and on this track is all crossfaded now. Love it. Let's make that small. There we go. So now we're going to render or bounce. Different DAWs call it different things. Pro Tools annoyingly calls it bounce, which is a very like old school, like a music program thing. Well, it goes back to tape machines, which much of Avid's stuff is all about like, oh, hearkening back to the days of tape. Like, cool. I have never worked with tape. Well, I have ingested tape, but I've never had to cut tape myself. Let's see here. So we're bouncing this out. And we got to make sure that we put it in the right spot here. That's the wrong drive. We're putting it on the right drive. Duh. The right drive, and this is going into Pro Tools bounces. And I don't have an audiobooks folder yet. This is a new computer. I just built this a couple weeks ago. And we're actually going to make sure that this stays at the top no matter what, we put 000 at the front. That's just a thing that I like to do sometimes. If you ever have a folder that you always want to show up at the top, if things are sorted alphabetically, put some zeros at the beginning of the name. And it's not auditions, it's audiobooks. Oops. Audiobooks. We'll just have it just be audiobooks. And then we're going to create another new folder. And again, we're going to use our 032. And this is accidental healer. Use current folder, and this is the prologue. And again, we're going to do another file name thing here, where I think for prologue, I usually have a 1 there. Prologue. And everything else looks good. Don't have to mess with anything. We are exporting in mono because we are doing audiobook stuff here. And now, let's bring up the old Positron. I'm actually going to come away from full screen just in case my like password shows or anything. So we're gonna make sure. Accidental healer. Now I've already done the work. Oh boy, is this supposed to look like that? Okay, we'll do it full screen then. We're coming back. Okay, so I've already gone through the trouble of importing the script. Positron, if you've never seen Positron, here it is, Positron. I have already imported the script, and I can actually here's the manuscript, upload a new manuscript. If you get a new version or whatever, you can do that there. So it knows it has detected the number of words in it, and I'm sure there's other details that I could bring up. We're not going to bother with that right now. But the way Positron works, you upload the script, then you upload your audio, and then it will actually, let's see here, let's go ahead and get the audio ingesting so that we're not totally wasting time here. Bounces, audiobooks, healer, prologue, and we're going to upload the MP3. So I just dragged in that MP3 that we just bounced out. And now Positron is going to ingest this audio, and it's going to listen. It's going to use its little AI ears, and it's going to listen to my narration, and it's going to compare that against the manuscript that it's got. And it will flag anytime that I diverted from the manuscript. And it will generate this really, really nice report, it calls it, with there's all these different format options and things like that. And depending on your DAW, it even has an option to like export, to create like project markers. See, look how fast that was. It already has marked 4 out of 4 errors or something that needs my attention. I've got, you can sort of set some parameters when you first start, and I have my parameters basically set to like medium. Everything is sort of like medium. So like medium tolerance for random noises. You can have it set to high if you've got a dog, and like maybe in the booth you might not hear it barking, but it did get into the microphone. Like it can kind of try to detect noises like that. I don't have that issue here. I hear pretty well when a noise has come through, particularly my stomach today. But we're going to open the proofing and you're going to see the kinds of things that get marked. So of those 4, one of those is simply just like make sure that where positron detected you have begun is also like is where you meant to begin, which here is actually valid because like the book starts with all of this stuff and positron's like, wait a minute, this is the first thing you've uploaded. I was expecting to hear accidental healer, tails, like that's what positron was expecting, but instead it hears this, which is great, and it actually like highlights where it was expecting or what it heard. Maybe it was expecting this, but it actually hears this, and so I can just hit OK, and that closes out that noise detected. And here's the other really cool thing about positron. When you've got this, see the highlight around this? This is a beta test feature. This is a new feature we're talking about here. Noise detected. When this box is highlighted, you can just press space and it will play the audio. So you can quickly determine like, is that a noise that I want detected? So let's hit space.
Take you back to where the end began. I touched upon it without.
That's fine. I don't think that's a problem. So we're actually going to do we're going to listen to this one first before we do anything there, just to see if maybe this beta testing feature is like currently calibrated a little bit too aggressively for our voice. So let's hear this one.
And warning wouldn't have been possible. My hope is that this.
So it detected a sneeze. That didn't sound like a sneeze to me. So we're going to filter out yes, and it automatically filtered out both. So we've basically disabled that feature for the entire rest of this project, this whole book. So that's it. We've got no pickups for the prologue. Love to see it. I bet we will have some pickups on the longer chapter. So let's go over to it. And if we were being truly efficient, we would already have been bouncing this out. We got to make sure the correct chapter is soloed. One thing that I do not do, this is sort of useful for like your order of operations, chapter 5. I do not turn on RX mouth declick for when I'm sending stuff to positron, because RX mouth declick, any of the RX tools, they're amazing tools, love them, but they're very, very processor intensive. And even with my brand new PC that I just built, it takes enough time, the difference between that bounce, which was practically instant, and if RX was on, it's enough that we'd be sitting here twiddling our thumbs for a second. So, the only person who's going to hear this, the only thing that's going to hear the version of this track with all those pops and clicks and horrible mouth noises is the AI of positron. And that's fine. And maybe positron will detect some horrible mouth noise that even RX might not grab. I don't know. But that's just find ways to be a little bit more efficient. And so I did a boneheaded thing efficiency-wise by not going ahead and having the next bit of audio ready and like processing while we were doing all of this proofing check. Nice thing, you can see the status here that our proofing, it's green. That means that chapter is good to go. And so we're just waiting right now for this to process. Let's see if there's anything we can do to be efficient while that's processing. Heck, we could actually, here, let's go ahead and do it. we're gonna turn on RX. Um, let's grab it again. Noise reduction, RX10, mouth declick. If you're curious about my settings are really simple. That's it. I use the factory default settings in RX mouth declick, but I set it at 2.0 instead of 4. And if you want to figure out like what your settings should be for you, like maybe especially if you have a higher voice, maybe whether you're a female or you're younger, you might need to hit a frequency skew to be a little bit higher. But I have found dead center frequency skew is good for me. I do not recommend touching this click widening. That's when you're really going to get some problems. The way to figure out where your sensitivity needs to be. Here's what we're going to do. Check output clicks only. If you want to be really methodical about it, start with sensitivity at 0. So I've hit space. Sensitivity is at 0, so the output clicks only should be 0, and you can actually see the number of clicks repaired is 0. But as you start to drag this bar up, you'll start to hear these horrible, it sounds like insects crawling in your skin. It's this horrible sound. Where are we? It's horrible, isn't it? So ideally, you want to drag this to where you can basically barely hear that it's working. But then you really want to double check. It's nice if you've identified like a specific spot where you know, like, oh, there's a mouth click that like, that's something that a listener would go like, ooh, what was that? Put your cursor there, turn on RX, without this box checked, the output clicks only. Turn on RX and listen to that little spot there to see, like, is it doing its job? I've found that at 2.0, it does its job really quite well.
With her drawl expression. All right.
I feel actually at the during that breath, drawl expression, that's a common place where you'll get clicks is during an inhale, because like little bits of nastiness are flying about in your mouth. So let's listen to that with this bypass. So mouth click is not on right now.
Brows rose with her drawl expression. All right.
Little bit of a click at the end of the word expression, but it's so minor that this sensitivity might not catch it, but that's fine because it's such a minor thing. Listeners understand that you are a human and you have human organs and, parts of your face that occasionally make little bits of noise.
Her eyebrows rose with her drawl expression. All right.
It's so minor. The point is not to deliver like a super sterile, pristine, perfect piece of audio. That is not what a listener expects. And in fact, that would be like, make me go like, is this AI? You kind of want those little markers that indicate like, hey, like this is a human. Like, I appreciate that. We're gonna overwrite our previous prologue thing, because remember the last prologue version that we output doesn't have RX on it, but now we've got RX on, and so we're going to bounce that out. Yes, I promise, I mean it. And there we go. And so now that's outputted. Let's go over to positron 17. I'm sure some of these are legitimate, so let's open it up and take a look here. Please check that the audio starts at the beginning of our chapter. Yes, 5. That's the beginning of the chapter. So we hit OK. Looks like OK. The noise thing is still here. We're not going to listen to all of these. We're just going to listen to the first one just to confirm that we aren't actually gasping as it claims that we are.
Birthday party at his grandmother's namesake. Suzanne had.
That's a regular breathing noise. Again, both in commercial voiceover and in audiobooks, we are not in the business of eliminating our breaths. We are confident in our microphone technique that our breaths are at an appropriate level that will not be jarring or annoying to listeners. I have not heard any feedback to the contrary, but I do not do anything to attenuate or eliminate breaths. Again, people understand that narrators are humans with lungs that need to fill from time to time, and so we breathe, and that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and just hit filter out. We've done 30 plus books, however many books, without that beta feature. So like maybe in the future we'll look at it again. But for right now, for the sake of getting through this, we're going to move on. Word inserted /. This is actually good. This was a decision that we made right there. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Here we go. Hopefully you can see this here. So I read dance hall / brothel. I could have just sort of inserted a little bit of space there and let that sort of imply the /. But with this particular author and just sort of it changes author by author, just the voice of the author here. I think that if I called up old VK Passanen and said like, hey VK, do you want me to narrate this with a space or with like actually say the word /? I think he'd be fine with me reading /. And he trusts me enough as the narrator that he's chosen twice now. He trusts my decisions, and our time on this earth is limited. You can't agonize over stuff like that. So we're going to say that this / is fine. So we click OK. Here we go. This is something that Positron picks up a lot. That is kind of annoying. And I see that we've got another one lined up here as well. That had is what it heard. I'm pretty sure that I have contracted this appropriately, but we will listen. Tell me if you think, yeah, Jade, absolutely the breaths. There was a time when I attenuated the hell out of breaths, and I was doing it like by hand, like each breath, like, ooh, I'm going to drop this, and like trying to make decisions like, ooh, do I drop it by 9 decibels or 13 decibels? Which is best? Let me listen to 9. Okay, let me listen to it at 10. Craziness. So mic technique, and I'm sure, Jade, I'm sure you know this. You're a professional, but for the folks out there who might be watching, who don't, who are sort of newer, maybe this is their first time working with a really fancy condenser microphone. So for the sake of breaths, like you really need to have a pop filter. You don't want to be talking directly into your microphone. What you want to do is have the microphone what is called off axis. So you're kind of talking a little bit past the microphone. The microphone is sort of coming at me at maybe like a 30-degree angle, so that all my breath is not, it's actually not touching this pop filter. This pop filter right now is doing no work. When I blow out, it's blowing right past the pop filter. The pop filter is there mostly for your P's, which can be a little bit more explosive. They're called plosives for a reason. So that P and B's and other consonants can really like explode air out in all directions. And that pop filter is just there for the last line of defense. But it also is useful because it serves as like a visual, like I know when my pop filter is about here in my peripheral vision that I'm the appropriate distance away from the mic. And I also know that when I need to do the proximity effect, so if someone has internal monologue, like, you know, main character thought to themselves, I don't know if I'm going to get out of this. I basically put my face to where I can feel my beard touching the pop filter. So pro tip, grow a big beard and use that to help for your proximity effect. That's step one. And if you can't grow a big beard, I'm sorry, this is not the career for you. But it helps just as to know, all right, here's proximity effect. I can feel the pop filter on my beard. And so I know that I'm like right up here on the microphone and I'm getting that proximity effect, which is great for internal monologues, or if you've got someone's voice inside your head communicating telepathically, whatever. Proximity effect is super, super useful for that. And this book has a lot of that. There are, you know, ethereal beings who like speak to some of these characters inside their brains. And so proximity effect will come into play. All that's to say, let's get back to, do we think, let's listen together. Work on that beard. Let's see here. Let's listen together and think when I said that had. Do we think I appropriately contracted this? Let's find out.
When they bought the old restaurant that had been an important part of right.
You know, I guess you could interpret it that either way, but I'm going to say that's good enough. I have been accurate enough that it wouldn't stand out. And I think that, you know, if the author was like reading this and listening along, I don't think the author would have a problem with this. So we're going to say that one's okay. And then we've got another one, should have versus should've. Should've. I don't know. This is probably the number one false positive that I get on positron is these particular contractions. And I don't know what positron wants from me. Do they want should like that's impossible. People don't talk like that. Let's listen.
Let it be known that the watchtower should have been his by right.
I think that's a contraction. I don't think that's two different words, but you know, it's an AI and it's only so smart. So we're going to mark that okay. And then it wants us to check that the end of the chapter is the end of the chapter. And it helpfully, I don't know if you can see this on the stream, but the period at the end of the chapter is highlighted. There it is. It's highlighted. And we see, yes, the next word is 6. So we are at the end of the chapter. So hallelujah, we actually don't have any pickups for chapter 5. Love it. That's a miracle. My pickup rate is about one every 5 minutes of finished audio is about what I find, which actually can be a lot. It can really so that means in an hour of audio, that can be it adds up. It can be a lot. I guess maybe if you actually extrapolate it out to an hour, I would say I probably get closer to maybe 10 per hour. So not quite one every 5 minutes, maybe one every 6 minutes. It depends on the kind of copy. For dense nonfiction stuff, obviously there's going to be a lot more errors. But don't beat yourself up over pickups. If you jump into Positron and you've got 20 pickups on a 10-minute chapter, whatever, that's just your brain. I've found, so in my booth, I've got I have a ventilation system. I've got intake and exhaust for this little room that I'm in. But I will often not turn it on because just in the back of my brain, I'm thinking there's just a little bit of extra noise floor that having those fans, there are silent fans, but they do introduce a little bit of noise. And so when possible, I like to keep those fans off. While we're talking, we're going to actually export the finished version of Chapter 5 with RxDclick on because we don't have pickups for this chapter, which is amazing news. So because I don't have the fans on in this room, what does that mean? That means I am slowly depleting my available oxygen and filling this room with CO2 from my big mouth. So that means that the longer I sit in here and narrate, the more oxygen deprived my brain is getting. So I actually, I will usually structure my breaks not around how my voice feels, but how my brain is working. I find that after about 2 solid hours of narrating, the oxygen levels have dropped enough in this booth. If I've got the fans off, the oxygen level has dropped enough to where my error rate, as I see in Positron, really starts to skyrocket. And my ratios get worse as well because if you're constantly making mistakes, well, then you're having to punch and roll, do more punch and roll edits. And so that part of your ratio will get worse and worse and worse. So 2 hours is usually the max for me that's when my brain starts to I don't know if it's full on ataxia or apoxia. What's the hypoxia? I think that's the one where you're not getting quite enough oxygen to your brain. So that's something that you got to keep in mind. So if you're recording in a closet, especially how many closets have great ventilation, right? So be aware of just how your mind-mouth connection is feeling. Be aware of, if you're starting to get frustrated because it's why am I making so many mistakes? If you've been in that closet for a couple hours, take a break, bring in a box fan and run the box fan, blowing into that room to help try to get some circulation going because it's a real thing. I've actually looked at oxygen meters, not like the oximeter things that we all got and wore on our fingers to test if we had COVID or whatever. But an actual free open air oxygen meter. I really thought of getting one of those, but they're really expensive. I looked on Amazon at $200 for like a decent one that will actually show you like what the parts per million of oxygen versus CO2 are in the air. It would be a fun thing to note and to be able to go like, hey, it's below X percent. It's time for me to take a break and sort of like re-oxygenate the booth while I go get some food or whatever. So to conclude, we are at 2 hours of yapping. So I'm sure I'm at low O2 sat levels right now. We did some real audiobook work today. We didn't output a whole lot of time, but this was a good test run, and I think I keep saying tomorrow, but tomorrow, we're going to try to do a full finished hour. So that'll be an extra long stream. I would imagine that will be closer to 3 hours, maybe even more if we keep yapping. An extra long stream where we do, again, this whole process of recording, of editing, of sending it off to Positron for proofing, and I imagine when doing a full finished hour, we're gonna get some pickups that we have to do. We'll do those pickups, and then if everything is set up right, I think we might have some moving parts that are awaiting fixing on the ACX side of things. But if we can upload an ACX, we will do that and show that whole process for folks that haven't done it before. ACX has made improvements. There are improvements to be made yet, but they have made some improvements, and so it'll be fun to showcase some of that new workflow stuff if you haven't submitted a project on ACX in a little while. But I hope that everyone out there appreciates themselves and treats themselves well. We are going to say adios on the stream. I want to say thank you to Jade and for the other folks stopping by. Thanks, Jade, for chatting with me. Love the chats. And for folks on YouTube, if I missed a YouTube chat, leave a comment on YouTube. I will respond to YouTube comments. And likewise, you can get in contact with me. My contact information, you can find my website. It's all in the description. You know what to do if you actually want to talk to me or if you want to hire me. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll do some more work together. All right? Good luck out there, everybody. Thank you. Bye.